Good morning, Jenn.
Good morning. Good Sunday morning. What are we listening to right now?
Ellie,
Oh, I can hear it this time.
Yes. Yeah, these Zoom calls, they get all tricky and stuff.
Yeah, I hear it now. Okay, I can actually have a real reaction to this.
Yeah.
I think it.
Well, this
LA
is
woman.
That's right, in honor of our guest locale. How's it going? You good?
Good. Yeah, good. I never know what to prepare for this, first beginning when we chat, because then, you zing me with some BS question where I'm like, I'm not even ready for that. I have to think about questions well in advance. I need notes. I need you to submit your questions ahead of time.
Nah, we don't do that. When you go to
Star
places
Wars,
like,
Star Trek.
the Disney World and all that, we live vicariously through your life. Therefore, it opens yourself up to legitimate questions.
Did your back live vicariously through my back after multiple times on Space Mountain? I still have a bruise.
No,
the biggest bruise I've ever had on my knee. I don't know how I got it.
Well, we went whenever my oldest was old enough to enjoy it, and the two others were so. And when the other two decided they wanted to do it themselves, we kind of lied and said it was not open. So that's all right. God. We got over it pretty quickly.
Now.
Nah,
they're like, Universal. So Universal's the next request, right? That's always the next request after Disney. Do Disney, then go to Universal.
Well, me personally, having done all of those with littles, Universal's, in my opinion, it's more geared towards parents anyway. So if you're going to bite the bullet.
Height-wise or because of height or?
No, you walk around Disney and it's, Small World and all the other Disney, micro classics, right? Yeah, and alcohol at Universal is much more accessible. But the music at Disney, it makes you feel like you're kind of in the cartoon. Universal's like, you're in Diagon Alley, so right next to Butterbeer is actual beer. So
it is real beer.
Real
For
beer.
Real?
Yep. Now it does cost $28 per 12-ounce can, but it's on.
Give you magical powers. It's worth it if it gives you magical powers.
Yeah, no kidding. So anyway, getting caught up here again. We've been on a little bit of a run. People are listening. More and more people are listening, Jen. Did you know that?
Because girls play this game and other games. Did you know that? You have all boys.
I didn't know that until I met you. It's crazy. I don't know.
Crazy thought. Girls have played for a long time. There might just be moms on your sideline that have played.
Well, I just thought those were the catering. Was that wasn't the catering? Orange slices. Come on now.
Yeah, nobody wants me bringing that shit. Now I'll get the oranges with all the seeds in it, and the kids are choking, and the wrong version of Capri Suns or whatever, because I'd rather just make them go run.
You probably totally bought. I mean, coming from a Star Trek person, you probably bought grapefruits thinking they were oranges and completely ruined the kids.
Well, okay, there is a story about Colorado lettuce that I could tell you, but I don't know if I want to tell you. We probably don't have time for that today.
Colorado lettuce?
Yeah. It was a grad school story. Real quick, it was a grad school story. I was out in grad school, and I lived with my aunt and uncle for the first year because I couldn't afford anything. Second year, I lived closer to downtown Colorado, which was awesome. And I got in my apartment. I went for my first grocery shopping trip by myself, because my parents will tell you this. And I came home and I had made a sandwich and I put lettuce on it. I like lettuce on my sandwich, and it was disgusting. And I called my mom and dad, and I was like, Colorado lettuce is bullshit. It tastes gross. And she's like, my mom's like, describe it to me. So I'm describing it. She goes, Jennifer, that's cabbage.
Oh, see, I was going the other way.
GPA.
Yeah, I was going the other way. I thought that you were eating the small leaf style Colorado lettuce. And then you were going to call your mom later and say, Mom, I don't know why I'm still hungry.
What? I got some munchies. Okay, let's talk about different stories. This probably doesn't surprise our upcoming guest, which I feel like we should say hello to. She's another Jenn. Weird. Another Jenn from the 1970s. Hi, Jenn Houston.
Hi. Yeah, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us out there.
So Jenn Houston is okay. So I'll just admit it. Is one of my idols. And so when I was a freshman, so at Lindenwood, I went to school in Eureka, and I literally followed Krista Niedenbach to Lindenwood. I was like, Krista Niedenbach is the coolest player ever in my world. Oh, she's going there. That sounds good. I will go there. And so I went there. And I don't think I've mentioned this ever actually to House, but when I got out to one of our first couple of practices, JB, I slide tackled Pam Lauber, who then told me if I did that again, she was going to break my legs. And so, because I tore off all the skin on my leg, and then she was super cool later. But then I'm pretty sure it was Pam Lauber who said, "Yeah, just go and call her House." And I was like, "I'm not calling a girl a House." And she's like, "No, her name is Houston." And I was like, "She's already told me she's going to break my leg. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to call this person House." And then I heard other people call you House. So then I was like, "It's House forever. It's House."
It is. It works.
A grown woman, a House.
Yep.
You want a team with multiple Jennifers? That's helpful.
We all had our last names. That's all we ever did.
That's right. It's always Siess for these women. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is always Siess.
And so, yeah, a little bit of reunion here. We've been connected kind of since, well, I mean, I don't know if I've ever really lost track of you, House. I just talked to Debbie Washburn, our coach, the other day, who will be coming on the podcast probably May-ish.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, like it was honestly, Facebook did it. When I got on Facebook when I was 40, all of a sudden I get connected with, and you find yourself, Lindenwood Women's Soccer Alumni Group. And it's so cool to see everybody kind of doing their thing and getting at it. And what I loved is you from Wisconsin, right? So we're in St. Louis at Lindenwood, which is now Lindenwood University, and it's now huge and I can't find my way around. It was so much simpler when it was small. And I want to hear the story about how you went from Wisconsin down to Lindenwood in St. Louis. And then all I hear is like houses on the West Coast in California. And you met an Olympic volleyball player, a soccer player meets an Olympic volleyball player. And here you are.
Here I am.
I got to know the story.
Well, all right. So back in the day, I don't even know if they still do this, but the ODP, remember the Olympic Development Program? And then they had the state teams, right? So I made the Wisconsin state team with an ODP. And every summer they would do a regional camp, like a week regional camp for all the ODP players. And then I made the regional team. And Coach Washburn at that time was the regional coach for it, right?
Okay,
so that's how,
right.
Yeah, so that's how I met Debbie, Coach Washburn, and was playing and doing all of that. And I mean, I didn't declare where I was going to school until May of my senior year. Can you imagine that now? Can you even imagine?
No, they do it when they're like at the end of their sophomore year.
I know. And what's all the signing day BS? Like, we didn't have any of that. They're like, "Oh, you're going to college? Cool. We don't care." No, signing day, you get a hat, you get no, none of that crap happened. They're like, "Good, get out. We have other people coming in. We need room." When we were in high school, right? So I went there, and Coach was like, "Hey, I coach at this school in Missouri, and I'd really love it if you could come for a trip." And I'm like, "Little school, I'm not going to do any of that. I have bigger aspirations." Like, I thought I was all baller and great and did all these things. And so I went on all these recruiting trips. Well, in my mind, I mean, I'm a legend in my own mind. See, so we know this. But so I went on all these great trips, right? These bigger schools and all these D1 schools and all these things. And at one point, my parents were like, "Listen, Jen, you need to understand. Like, if you go to one of these schools, you're going to flunk out. You're a partier." Like, they knew me. And I'm like, "Oh, you're not wrong at all." And so
we're the first person to help me get drunk.
See, they were right. They were right. It didn't help that we were in school in like Anheuser-Busch land either. I mean, it was everywhere.
And on a dry campus.
Not in my room. But anyway. So yeah, so she was like, come down. And I was like, "No, I don't, Lindenwood." And I never made it a priority. Then Coach calls and she's like, "We're coming to your Friday night game." I'm like, "What?" So it was like Becky Stegan, Jennifer Dykes.
Oh my God.
And there was one other player that came with her, and they came to Wisconsin.
So she brought one of our recruiter players with her. to see you.
She brought team, the players to come up and see me and like talk to me. And I'm like, all right. So we went to the game. I played the game. They watched, and then we all came to my parents' house, to my house after. And I remember just sitting around the kitchen table with everybody and chatting and hanging out. And then like, you really need to come down and see the facility and see the campus. So I was like, fine. I'll come. Like, it was just this whole thing. And I went. And I spent the night with Beth Naiman. Do you remember her?
So there's a lot like
no,
Liz
she was
Kissling,
I was a
right?
freshman and she was a senior.
So like there's a couple of those ladies who had, graduated just before I came on, but the names I know for sure.
Yeah. Well, Beth was like insane. She was from Oklahoma. She was crazy. She was like, I'm like, these are my people. As soon as I read them, I'm like, I'm gonna come here. It was like a huge party school. Like people were running down the halls with kegs on their shoulders. We were always ranked in the top 5. They had just gone to the national championships. I'm like, this is like a win-win, right? I get an amazing soccer program, a great coach. I get to party like a crazy person. They didn't have a football team, and everything was focused on soccer. And I'm like, my 18-year-old ego was like, this is where it needs to be. This is where I have to go. Well, so I come back home and like made my decision, going in, right? Like signed the 2 days later after I got home. Show up in August. We have a football team. There is now a dry campus with single-sex dorms and no visitation. I'm like, what just happened?
I didn't know it was any other way. So that's the only way I know it. I'm surprised that you're telling me the story.
Lucky me, was the first year. Our class was the first year all that happened.
Bait and switch.
Well, no one even told us. How do you not get a letter at this point? But anyway, I digress. We stayed. We had a great team. It was like Kristen Miller, Cynthia Hagan. We had a pretty great Pam Lauber. Yeah. We had a pretty good class, and we ended up going to due South Carolina for, again, the national championship that year.
Yeah, and I remember when I was considering, I was pretty much like, Chris Niebach's going there, so I'm going to go there. But I remember Krista talking to me about it, and she's like, this is a good team. And it's been told to me more than once of other coaches, right? Carl Hutter when he was there, and others that, you might have been NAIA, but you could have gone toe to toe with NCAA schools. It was a great team before me, and during all 4 years we went to the national finals. Yeah,
we did. And good. I think my first goal I scored my freshman year was in Texas. We played TCU, who was a D1 team, and we beat them. And it was just we were good. It was fun. It was really fun.
Except, albeit dry.
Dry, and can we talk about we literally played on a slab of cement with something green painted on top of it. Can we just talk about the field? Seriously,
I don't know. My skin's gone
miserable.
to it. Part of my I was a slide tackler, so my skin is gone.
Oh, me too. Yeah, it's just like no hair grows there anymore. It's like you don't even have to shave in certain spots because it's just scarred over. It was terrible. I mean, how we all didn't get sepsis from how gross it was. I have no idea. Never
and
got
3 a
washed.
days. 3 a days.
Yeah,
Can we call it out? 3 a days.
The 3 a days.
After my first day, I was like, I think I gotta quit. I can't move. So the first instructions you get after 7 a.m. practice, I'm freshman, you're a junior, I think, by then, right? So I think I'm a freshman, you're a junior, because I was there with you 2 years. And the instructions you get are, you work out, and it's hard, of course, and you go really hard because I was a freshman, and you got to show everybody that you are good and you belong here. And then the instructions from Coach Debbie is don't go to sleep, keep moving, see you at the next practice. I went to sleep. I fell on my bed. I passed out. I'm pretty sure my burn from the turf stuck on my sheets with just blood. And then I remember I could barely walk to practice because you're not supposed to lay still. You're supposed to keep moving. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 18. Yeah. I'm 17. I was 17. I'm like, I can't do this. This is day 1 of 3 a days. I'm gonna die.
Yeah, and it was 2 weeks. We did 2 weeks of that.
We did full 2 weeks. And then I'm pretty sure we went to 2 a days. as the rest of campus was coming on. And then it was like, and then you had games and classes, for real classes. So it was nice though. I loved being a fall athlete and just having the sports teams there for the first couple of weeks. Like you don't have the rest of the students. We kind of had the campus to ourselves, and everybody came and it was like, oh, now this sucks.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's ruined. It's ruined now.
Right, JB, I didn't want to leave you out.
No. I know when to allow the class reunion to commence. So just kind of listening and picking up a little bit of the lay of the land, because obviously Siess, I'll call you Siess for this episode.
You can't. I'll look.
I'm familiar with your path and where you were at, et cetera, and house, since we're now on a last name basis.
We are.
My question to you is really more about the culture, the soccer culture, coming from Wisconsin, which, yes, there was soccer there, competitive soccer in some markets, but you come down to St. Louis, in which it's a different beast here, just from a community cultural standpoint. But in listening, obviously the social component was fairly important to you, is what it sounds like. Did coming here and playing collegiately at that program with those teammates, with that coaching staff, did it enhance, stay the same? Did it decrease your perception of the game or love of the game? Or, what did the experience have or result in for you personally from a love of the game standpoint?
I think looking back on it now is how I can answer those questions. Like when I was in it, it was like, isn't this what everybody does? This is just the next step. This is what you do. Like it was never an if or a what. It was, oh, this is what I'm going to go do now. And so it seemed so natural for me. And one of the reasons too why I picked the St. Louis school is that it's like, it feels like that's the birthplace of soccer in the United States, right? Everything kind of came out of St. Louis for soccer, in my perception in that day.
You just made JB very happy. I see this as being one of those snippets he uses, and he tags Kansas City people.
Well, no, I take those kind of sound bites and I only promote it in Kansas City zip codes.
But it's true. And I wanted to be a part of it, and it was fun, and it was there, and the stadium was great. And so for me, looking back on it now, you see the impact it had and what it was and how fortunate I was. And it's like I fell into shit, right? I mean, is that what they say? Like it was just this, who gets to do that? Who gets to come in their freshman year start and go to the national championships? I mean, every year you play. It was, and not even only that, but have a woman coach. I mean, I think coach back in that day was one of a handful of women that had a Class A and coaching. And it was just epic. It was amazing. I don't know. My teammate, I still am in touch with so many of my teammates. I mean, I was just in Wisconsin with Kristen Miller. We FaceTime coached when we were there. I love that we still call her coach, and we're all older than dirt. And we're like, coach!
Thank you. That's what I say. I just talked to her on the phone actually the other day. I was talking with her about coming on the podcast, and she was like, sure, Siess. She's like, by the way, you can call me Debbie. I said, I cannot. I cannot do that.
Call her Debbie. No.
I can't call her Debbie. And she, by the way, told me about that phone call and about how much that meant to her.
Did she?
And
Good.
just like so cool that you and also looking, I was just real quick. I always think it's fun to Facebook for old people is what my daughter tells me, but I'm looking, the helpful part about Facebook is you look at mutual friends, and I clicked over real quick to yours, and I'm like, okay, Kristen Miller, Pam, obviously, but Julie Dempsey, Jackie Heron, Debbie Washburn, of course, Liz Kissling, who I played with later when we got on the old lady team, but Ruth Harker, Jackie Billett, like those are, we've had them on the podcast, and I've actually, so it's so eye-opening to me how the game connects too, because I wouldn't have, like, I don't know your connections to them. We didn't play. It's not a names that ever came up, but it's cool that you're connected with them as well.
Do you guys know Tammy Duco as well?
Oh yeah, Duke. Well, I
Tammy.
think she came along when Jenn, you were graduated, but she played with me.
She's my age. She
I
graduated.
had a year of her.
Oh, did you have? Okay,
Excuse me.
I had a year of Tammy.
Yeah, she would have been freshman because we graduated in '93. So this is how small the soccer world is. Tammy was one of one, two, three, five, six. Her older brother Terry was an All-American goalie, Florida International, and Tammy, though, she went to Lindenwood, and actually her and my wife are like best friends. I mean,
she was a badass.
But a lot of it, you know, the reason why I'm close with her is, again, the game and her siblings. I played against her brothers, and it's so funny because, you know, you guys are talking about kind of that Facebook Venn diagram where do we all intersect? But, you know, the game is, it's really unique in so much that it is soccer that ties so many of our relationships, you know, well into the second half. I'm not going to say the final third, but the second half of our lives. So let me ask you this, House. You were talking about your own mindset in preparing for college and the schools you were looking at and where you thought you were going to go, and then balancing in your parents' own observation of your social lifestyle requirements.
Readiness?
Yeah, right. We do have probably a good amount of young players that listen to the show now. Think back to those times, like if, you know, just like you referenced my previous question to, it's easier to answer it now as I look back at it. Talk about the recruiting process and about your own preparation for determining where you wanted to go play or where you wanted to go to school. You know, if you had it to do over again, what kind of advice would you give young, confident House as a player when it comes to evaluating what's a good fit for me?
Well, for me, it was just feel. The first one was feel. It was, I wanted to go to a place that I felt comfortable, that felt like home. Like, in understanding and how much soccer we played when we were little, it's like, it is such a dominating force in your time, in your mind. So if you're miserable doing it, it's not going to work, right? And if you're not comfortable where you are, it's not going to work. So for me, the first one was that. The second one for me was, especially back then, I mean, there was really nothing to do after college for soccer, right? Like those 4 years was it, unless you went to Japan or did something back then to play professionally, you were done. So it was very important to me to find a place that I could start as a freshman. I wanted to play. I'm like, I have 4 years left. I don't want bench time. I want to go where I can come in, be an impact player right away, and get every ounce and minute of this amazing sport I can of what's left. So, you know, that was my journey, right? I was very cocky. I was very arrogant back then. Siess can tell you. I have humbled in my old age, but
no, don't do that.
I'm still a badass.
I think what you said is, I just had a little bit of an aha / epiphany, maybe. What you just said in being cognizant after the fact, you know, at this point of your life, being able to answer your process, the one question specifically, I wanted to make sure I could go someplace to play because I was near the end of the line. You know, for so many players now, even though there are exponentially more options than there were back in the 90s when it comes to playing pro or going beyond college, let's be real, the actual percentage of opportunities is, just so small. It's critically important to think about when you do decide to play college soccer, boy or girl. You are entering into kind of a final phase of true competitive level outside of the fun over 25s and 30s, whatever. Did you how was it frustrating knowing that you do only have 4 years left? I mean, it's one of those things. It's almost like knowing, okay, I am terminally ill, and at this point on this date, I am going to the other side. I find it really kind of incredible that you realized that as a senior in high school, because most of us didn't. What was different? Why? How did you know that?
Well, I mean, I just knew because I had friends that were older that had, like, they went to Japan and they played, and only 2 Americans or 2 foreigners could be on a Japanese team. So I looked at that in the sense of it's not just Americans, it's foreigners. So there's two let's say there's 20 teams in the league, right? So that's 40 people in the world that I have to beat to go play over there, right? So it's just, I don't know. I always kind of thought that way. I'm always thinking like 3 steps ahead of what are we going to do and how is this going to work and how am I going to live my best life and what I have right now, and let's just figure it out. So it was, if this is it, let's go.
Well, let me, I meandered a little bit. Let me back up a little bit, because I think that what I'm really getting at is how important is it, and either one of you can answer this as well, for a player to be cognizant of their level, because if they do love the game and they want to play, can players that are fighting above their weight go to a bigger program with a lot more shine and luster, right? But they might have to sit 1 year, 2 years, 3 years before they get a chance.
It just depends on what's important to you. I mean, I had a cousin who just graduated and is now in some baller job at Bank of America in Charlotte, but she was a goalie, and her goal was to play D1. She wanted to play D1, and she got a scholarship to Syracuse, and she didn't play that much. But that wasn't her goal. Her goal was to be in a D1 program. She wanted that experience.
It's funny that you say that right now, because I was literally scrolling a little bit last night, probably on Instagram. I don't remember what it was, but somebody posted that goalkeeper we know it's a different position. Of course, they're a little bit different people in and of themselves, but they've got, you're one. That's it. Unless you've got field skills, that is it for you. But that they're finding so many college students that will be the fourth goalkeeper on a team, right? Like I only remember having like 2 house when we were at Lindenwood, really 2, maybe an incoming freshman, but 2 maximum. But they're willing to be the fourth goalkeeper on a D1 team because they want to be D1 when they may never, ever even touch the field. And I don't think I could have done that as a player either. I knew I wasn't going to start right away as a freshman, but I would get field time, and I did. I don't think I could have done it any other not played.
No, I could have not played. No way. But again, that was what was important to me, right? So it's about, like you're saying, Anderson. It's about
you can just call me that guy. It's okay.
That guy. All right, JV. But no, it's what's important to you. And I think identifying what's important to you in your following year in college, where you play, and help that forge your decision of where you go and what you want to do. So it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah, and there's I remember in my degree field when I went on to my master's degree, one of the things they talk about is an RJP, a realistic job preview, which I always thought was, to take a future hiree into the day in the life, right, of what they're going to do, because it increases the chances that they will stay in their job, right, when they really get to know. And it's like, wouldn't that be great? And we could take this down to club ball as well. What is a day in the life of a college player look like as a freshman that may never touch the field, because sometimes freshmen don't play because you've got older people and you need to learn the ropes. What does a day in the life look of at a D1 college versus the day in the life of a not a D1, but you are actually on the field in a game playing, and how much that might increase satisfaction with somebody who commits. When we have now, JB, we talked to Katie Shields at SLU about, there's this whole transfer window, which I don't remember even existing when we were in. Nobody did.
We had to sit out. You had to sit out a year.
Yeah, right. I forgot about that.
You have to sit out.
This whole kind of thing where it's like, oh my God, this is not what I wanted, which kind of a lot of people told you to begin with, but now I really am living. Oh, and I have classes too. And there's this whole, transfer thing, which has a lot to do with players not being satisfied with what they've gotten, and they want to go somewhere else. And that didn't exist back then. Didn't even think about that.
No.
Yeah, but I thought I would also.
Ruining sports, by the way.
Yeah.
Portal's ruining sports.
Yeah, true. And one thing I wanted to mention, and we can circle back around if we want to stay on the time. So you've made your way out to the West Coast, where currently you are marked safe from the storms that are the water that is just sitting over Southern California. Yeah, so good. So far, so good.
the lake, the ocean is up there, just dumping the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm curious as to like how you wound I never asked you how you wound up out on the West Coast. Although knowing you now, it seems like a perfect fit. But you were a Midwesterner like the rest of us. You know, you took
I
your
was.
Wonder Bread or knockoff generic version bags and put them in your snow boots like the rest of us.
Mhm.
And now
Yep.
you're living the life at the moment underwater, but normally under sun.
Yeah. No, so, I was in St. Louis and then I stayed for a while. And then do you remember the Bush League? Literally,
I was
the
in
Bush
it.
League. Yeah.
We were never
it
the
was
Budweiser
greatest
Premier
game.
League.
Yeah, we called it the
Which
Bush
started
League,
as a
right?
draft. Remember, it started as a
Yep.
draft. And I
Yep.
heard,
So
I don't know
that's
if JB, our previous guest, Stephanie Gabbert, was apparently the first draft pick for the women in
Gabby.
Budweiser
Yeah.
Premier League.
Yeah.
Gabby, so you knew
Yeah,
Gabby
yeah.
too. Oh my God.
I know. No, Gabby and I are super close friends. Like we hang all the time. Like Gabby's the bomb. So
What the hell?
Gabby,
I'm here. I'm right here. I'm right here.
So then I went to the indoor complex. I forgot the name of it with the crazy Greek coach. Forgot his name. It would make us do Uzo shots after indoor games. And we would go there. And so I met Casso, I met Gabby, I met Ruth. I played indoor with all of those guys while I was at Lindenwood. And Casso, after college, got a job at Anheuser-Busch. And then we stayed friends. And she was like, "Hey, Jen, we need some people to come to Forest Park for Earth Day and give out O'Doul samples. Do you wanna do that?" I'm like, "Yep." So I did, and then that's kind of what got me in, because I was supposed to go out to Cal and get my MSW, right? Like go get it. I'm like, anyway, that didn't happen. So I just jumped on the chance, and then I was like, this is the greatest job ever. So I got into experiential marketing that way and kind of was on the road traveling with all these amazing different things. I did the Olympic torch relay in '96 for Coca-Cola, where we went all over, literally 15,000 miles in 50 days. It was crazy.
Oh my God.
And just fell in love with it. And then after 3 years, I'm like, oof, I'm so pooped. I'm sick of living out of a suitcase. I need a dresser, right? So I got a job at GMR Marketing and worked my way up, and finally we won this huge piece of business with Visa Sports Marketing. And I got dubbed to be the account director on that piece of business, and it moved me out to San Francisco because that's where Visa is. And then I was out there for a few years, and they were like, "Okay, Jen, some new business came in." Because I would go in and I would kind of onboard new clients and then move to other ones, and then
party with new clients. I would party with new clients.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Create the experience.
Using my skill set. So then they're like, "Hey, well, we just won Gatorade and Target or something," and they're like, "We need you to come back to Milwaukee." I'm like, "No, I'm not leaving San Francisco. No." So it was an Omnicom agency. They're the largest holding company of marketing and advertising agencies. So they're like, "All right, we have one in Los Angeles, the marketing arm. Go down there and do business down there." So that's what brought me here. Been here ever since.
And fast forward, because it's funny, when you and I were texting back and forth, we were trying to make this happen. I love your text to me because you have 2 kids with your wife, Nicole Brana, who
Brana.
Brana, thank you very much. I took a stab. I should ask you. Brana,
Nailed it.
who Olympic. So how does Olympic beach volleyball player and soccer player, she uses her hands, you use your feet. Like we're different sports. How does that happen?
It's weird. It's we met at a basketball game, which I think is even funnier. But no, listen, Nicole is such an extra level than I ever was. She is a full-on baller. She's nuts, but it's great. And having the kids grow up around sport and having that example for them is just amazing. It's amazing.
So she's got 2 parents who your kids have 2 parents, and I'm scrolling through your Facebook a little bit because you have a post of your daughter.
Just call it trolling. I'm trolling. You're not scrolling.
House. It's fine. I'm trolling House, but it's fine. I adored House. I adore House. Your daughter is how old now? How old
10.
is she? 10. Okay.
10.
So she reminds me of my firstborn daughter. You have her in a picture. She's in a princess dress, but a Wonder Woman tiara. And I'm like, I will send you this. I have an identical picture.
You texted me with that. You're like,
little.
You did.
Oh my
you
God.
told me that.
identical, your little dude, and you said, and I'm now coaching U8 select soccer. And I noticed you said select, not club, which we appreciate because it's select. So now two kids who are both ballers of what you do with moms who are high level athletes. What does that household look like? How does that work as you start to wade into the competitive side of sports with kids?
We're very busy, as you know. I mean, you have it. You have like, what, do you have 75 kids now, Steve?
Okay, I have,
like, how many is it?
I have 4.
74.
4. Thank you, JB. 74 kids.
I just carry them all
Just
really
here
well.
for the stats. Don't worry. Keep going.
But we're busy. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of things. And I mean, in the kids' sports these days too, it's too much. It's crazy that they make you specialize so early, that no other coach. I mean, my son's 7 years old, and this is why I don't have him in club, because it's like, nope, year round, especially out here, because it's never snows. You'd always be outside. The pools are open all year. Like, there's no season for anything here. There's no season. It's all hockey is year round here. Crazy. Like, it's nuts. And so our biggest focus is really trying to get them to cross train and cross sport and get a ton of different experiences in different things, because we both believe that there's a ton of growth. And she and I were both 3-sport athletes growing up. And I mean, as you know, I had the one big injury, but up until that point, I was never really injured, because I think that I just worked all my muscles and stretched. And I didn't stretch. Who am I kidding?
You did not stretch.
No Gen Xer stretch.
I never stretched. I never stretched. I'm like, do we have to warm up? Can we just start the game? Let's go. But anyway.
I want to get back into kind of your day job world and see if you have any opinion or insight as it pertains to marketing in general in the sports, in NIL. And I know that you mentioned your experiential marketing, but NIL is the new hot topic. You know, the tool, so to speak, to basically start to pay athletes. That's what it is, specifically at the collegiate level. And I find it really, really interesting when I go in and do the research on that, because it just intrigues me to begin with. But when you look at agencies that are NIL agencies, you look at their roster, quote, athlete list, it's SEC football, ACC basketball, and then women's volleyball, and then it's more football, basketball, then it's women's tennis, and the athletes. And I find it like it's becoming a great potential tool, because out of men and women, when it comes to athletics in general, on social media, the girls are way better. They're just way better at growing market and engagement and followers. Is this something that you think is long-term a good tool? Because the ages are dropping as far as who's utilizing social media for kids. But as a leveling factor to bring money into women's sports, do you think NIL is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing. I think it's a cop-out for the media companies to say that women can get paid in sport versus actually putting them on primetime and getting people engaged in the sport and allowing them to see how beautiful these games can be. Look, they can get paid over here. We can put cricket on at 5:00 on a Sunday instead of women's sports, right? Like people say that, well, you know, no one watches. No one has a chance to watch. We've learned that with the soccer games, all the different things. If it is on, people watch. They follow. They get excited. They do things. We're setting new attendance records for all these women's sports. Look at the Nebraska volleyball. 96,000 people in that stadium in Lincoln. Like, you know, put it on TV. People watch. People want to see it. They want to do it, but you know, they don't want to take that small lull to build the practice. And you have to build the practice to get it going and to make it even. You know, and I just, even with the exposure, and for women, I have a whole other thing with the NIL. I think it's crazy, but don't let them go to school. Have farm teams and pay them. There's no need to go to college.
Well,
There's no need.
I think it's one of those things in soccer in particular because it's a major issue on the men's side, specifically with international players coming in and being recruited and taking up not only roster spots, but one of 9.9 scholarships, right? And it's become a lightning rod of a subject. And NIL, there's some people arguing, okay, well, if you have NIL money, because really what it comes down to, it's all economics for all these programs. But on the women's side in particular, I completely agree with you as it pertains to programming, television, network, streaming sports, that it's just not enough. They're not doing it. They're not putting the investment into it. But if NIL if it does exist, it does seem to me a little bit of a gateway drug in an odd way.
It is a gateway drug, but I mean, is it Caitlin Clark, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing. She's a baller. She deserves every penny she gets. But here's the thing. She's not out there by herself. Someone's feeding her those balls. Someone's running those plays. Someone gave her that pick, and they're not getting NIL money, right? Like, if she's not out there, if those other players, those 4 players aren't doing their job, she can't get those points. She doesn't have the ability to succeed and be as dominant as she is because she has her teammates that have to take care of her. I mean, I have some friends that are D1 football coaches, and they say the animosity that this creates in the locker room for these star quarterbacks, the linemen are like, F this, get them, right? Like, they're like, we get a pizza party at the local pizza place, and this dude's driving a Rolls Royce on campus, right? So it's not equitable. Not that anything in this world is, but the old way it was, like, my dad, when I was in college, he was like, and this is old school, like, oh, I didn't wear a helmet playing football because I'm so old. But anyway, it's more like,
A
my dad
leather
was like,
hat.
Jen, you got to get a job. Yeah. Like, Jen, you got to get a job. I'm like, I have a job. He's like, what are you talking about? I go, I make X amount of dollars a year playing soccer. So you don't have to pay for me to go to college. I mean, that's the experience. That's what it is, right? Like, there's no purity in sport anymore. There's no purity in sport anymore. Everything is pay to play. Everyone will tell you your kid is good so they can cash your check, and then they'll bring guest players into tournaments to play them. It's ridiculous. It's why my son is not in club, because I don't like the way that is. I don't think that it's fair to a 7-year-old kid, and it's not fair to my pocketbook to pay $3,000 a quarter to play soccer, and then he just sits there, and then they bring kids in from other leagues to win tournaments. It's a joke. I'm very opinionated about this, if you can tell.
No, I mean, that's why I assume I read the room and I wanted to hear the opinion. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I wonder if an extension of this too, and we can circle back to this too, because I want to hear more, but I think House is the perfect person to ask for this, because I value your opinion, as you know. And it's just been recently another, I would say TikTok. It's probably TikTok, but I don't have TikTok, so I get the leftovers on Instagram, which I, can barely maneuver in Instagram. But saw a recent, I think it was a basketball player, a male basketball player, talking about, men's and then female sports, which was an interesting choice of words. Men's sports and female sports. I'm like, that's weird. It's women's, but okay. And just talking about how, hey, I understand, like, I totally understand why they want to get paid more. Like, I get that, but you got to draw the viewership. You got to draw. It's like ping pong. Like, that's a skill. Like, compare it to freaking ping pong, like basketball, Caitlin Clark to basketball, to ping pong. And it was like, he's saying, hey, ping pong requires skill, but nobody wants to watch it. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing right now? We've got, like you said, House, volleyball packing arenas. We've got hockey, women's hockey packing arenas. And I think, you tell me from a marketing perspective, when it comes to a pure growth market, women's sports are it. Like, men's sports are not tapped out, but like, they've been at a high plateau for a long time. If you're a smart business person, I think that when it comes to broadcast,
there's a huge swing.
Sponsorships, why is this not a business move, is my question.
No, it is. It's starting. The foundations of it are starting. And the growth opportunities for sponsorship within women's sports is insane. And getting in, I'm not going to say ground level now because it's moving, like getting in now is like third floor. You're getting in on the third floor for growth and exposure, and brands are seeing it. There's a huge paradigm shift in brands wanting to be involved in women's sports
and the
sponsor
kind
women's
of
sports.
athlete, right? That I've read that the kind, like the brand, the satisfaction of brand for when they put their brand, with a person, and it's a woman, a female athlete, has a lot of clout where a male might not, a man might not quite have the same kind of reach with their audience that a female would have when they're with a brand. That clout that
well,
is
no, I mean,
different.
who buys everything in the house?
Amazon Prime, Alexa.
Right, but
I've never
Yeah,
met
the
Alexa,
mom.
but apparently she
Alexa's
buys
a
a lot.
woman, JB. They made it a female voice for a reason.
I have no opinion on
Yeah.
that. Alexa orders everything in
Yeah.
our house.
Yeah. Well, and right. So, but it's true. It's about buying power and staying power, because women control over 60% of all household incomes of how things are spent. Right. Don't quote me on my math; it's a little off, but it's very high up there of the power of purchase power decisions. And so aligning that with women's sports and women's passions and girls' passions and where they are, and always, and getting boys behind it too. Like we make Will go to just as many women's
Female.
games as we do
The
men's
females.
games, right? And so we took him. We had courtside seats for the Sparks home opener this year. It was the first game Brittany Griner came back, and we were right there. And Will was like, "Oh, women's sports." It was like, I'm like, "Do you know who your parents are?" But again, it's just what he hears on the playground, right? We brought another one of his little friends from next door, and they were so into it, loved it. He's like, "When can we go back?" And he's like, "Sparks, Sparks!" Like they were cheering, and he wanted to get a Sparks shirt. But it's exposure. How many dads are going to take their boys to a WNBA game, which is ridiculous? Take them. It's sport. It is sport. It doesn't matter.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you kind of what your opinion is in regards to, I'm going to go back to the TV kind of component of this conversation. I think the other day, because obviously we're in the middle of Super Bowl season, I heard a stat that like 45 of the top 50 Nielsen rated shows over the last 12 months were NFL games. That includes all produced television, all news, everything. 45 of them were football. Now you go over to the flip side and you talk about, or you brought up the volleyball game at Nebraska with 97,000 people. And then I'm going to go one step further and talk about how our children consume media these days. Do you potentially see this as really not necessarily a debate on the substance, but really the delivery? Because our age group, and frankly, it's the majority of the decision makers in the marketing and the ad world and in corporate America, they're a hell of a lot closer to our age than they are our kids' age. But our kids predominantly, if you said, "Hey, go put it on NBC News, please," they would be lost. They would not know where to go from like a traditional media channel format. They know their Insta channel. They know their TikTok channels. Do you see this as maybe lost in translation? And just speaking in regards to women's sports in particular, is there a greater opportunity to lean into the tech shift and where these young eyeballs are than maybe the market is realizing?
Well, of course, that's always been the case, right? It's always been the case. Nothing is ever done the way it's supposed to be done. It's where the money is. It's where you can get paid to do it, right? So, that's the only reason that things are that way. Listen, if it's on NBC News, my son's going to find it. Someone's going to stream it onto YouTube, and he's going to find that there, right? Everything is in snippets, right? So wherever you can get snippets and these kids have access to, they're going to find it if they want to find it. So it's just about how you can do that control flip, right? It's a control flip in how you absorb content. I don't think it's where, I think it's how, and then how it gets there. To be able to absorb it, right? We're the same way. Like Will and I get up at 4 a.m. and watch Manchester City games. He loves it, right? But again, we're in this snippet community where by second half, he's like, "Oh, I can't watch anymore," even unless it's a really amazing game. But it's exposure and how we're doing. I think the small snippet blink of an eye content it's ruining a generation to experience and love things that are beautiful and matter. But again, that's a whole other podcast that that is not this.
Well, doesn't that add to the problem then? Because the two of you were mentioning and focusing on the reality that the dollars just don't follow the women's games like it does the men's side. Is it going to be slow to react to that because we're all admitting that we are a snippet environment community? Who's going to put a big bet on trying to swing macro viewers if we're admitting that the consumption method is shifting?
But I'm talking to kids that are young, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying we are missing. I guarantee you, Siess and I are going to watch, right? Everyone within our age group is going to watch, and we spend money. These kids don't spend money. We spend money.
Right.
So they're missing out on it. We are like a forgotten generation of women's sports and viewers that had to deal with men, had to deal with all the men stuff. And now our kids are kind of getting it, but there's nothing for us at all. Except for the World Cup.
Right. And even then the decision making on the next woman, we've got like 2 men's World Cups that are already figured out, and I don't think we even have a decision on the next women's World Cup. And by the way, can we say men's and women's World Cup, not World Cup and women's World Cup? I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah.
But the point is that that was actually my question to you, House, is because of the snippet generation, my kids are the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, what's their stupid Snapchat? They snap stuff, and I don't understand that. I grabbed one of their phones the other day.
Just buy the stock. You don't need to know anything about it. Just buy the stock. Yeah,
they're like, oh my God, now they know you saw it. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like, stop touching my phone. I'm like, oh, Jesus. But
no, it's my phone, by the way.
Not
your phone.
Yeah, because I pay the bills. But the point is then how come maybe we should, I'm in traditional media, besides podcast's a little bit different, but I'm in traditional media with our MLS team in St. Louis. Does the traditional media coverage, the ESPN, the Fox, the Apple, is it going to be relevant, or should women just go ahead and pioneer the social side of it? But maybe the money's where the traditional broadcast, the sponsorships, the money is still there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's both. It's everything has to run a parallel path. Everything has to run a parallel path for growth. You can't lift one up and then the other and then here. Everything has to merge up, right? So to me, it's just.
Well, I think
until there's equity across the board in everything, right? Like.
Yeah, but we're always going to get from the haters. We're always going to get, it could be equity, but you just got to pull the viewership. If you don't pull the viewership, you don't pull the money, then you can't make the money. That is the constant argument.
But we pull the viewership, and then they pivot. Then the goalposts move.
Well, let me ask you a very direct question then, because you obviously have an embedded experience within the marketing and the decision making world when it comes to product experiences from a corporate level. Why is corporate America not leaning more and or faster into women's programming from a VW/Coke/ T-Mobile standpoint? If you can prove the viewership, why are the dollars not following, in your opinion?
Because who's making the decisions in those companies?
Yeah, no, I mean, if
that's why.
I get this. It feels like what was it? Just the other day, the Oscar, the issue with the Barbie nominations. Well, on the Oscar, where the only one of the 3 is the man that gets nominated.
Mm-hmm. Ken
got. I mean, it's like how did we just step into that mess this big? But
it was actually so perfect. So I hate it that it happened at the same time. It's the most poetic thing that could happen if you watch the movie.
Agree.
It's like, what's that point? You run face first into the point. Yeah, that was it. That's what that looks like. And so it sounds like that maybe from a traditional. And when and I don't know what it is anymore. My brain wraps around traditional in terms of I grew up on KMOX here in St. Louis. I grew up on, our local stations, Channel 5, Channel 4. And then you would be like, which network is that? And the network. So I'm assuming that's still the traditional. And then you branch out into what used to be cable, because my dad never bought that. ESPN, now it's Fox, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess those are still the channels that we look for when it comes to women athletes being able, and then sponsorships that go with it, right? Women athletes being able to make their due for playing, and to drive that is still traditional media holds that power more than the social media movement.
Yeah, you kind of broke up a little there in the beginning, so in the middle.
So yeah, just being like, does the traditional media then, when I'm thinking of, again, ESPN, Fox, Apple, is where our women athletes are going to, and the coverage make money more than the social aspect when it comes to any other non-traditional media?
I mean, right now, I think it's all the streaming services, right? Because if you go and you have your cable box and you go to ESPN, you might get ESPN, ESPN2, and if you're lucky, ESPNU, right? But if you go to the app, I mean, you can go to any sport and find anything you want.
Just go straight to the Ocho so you can watch drone racing in empty warehouses.
Yeah. No, the slap contest.
Oh my God, yes.
Listen, I've done it. But
God,
it's cool because you can watch we watch the women's softball. Our daughter loves that. Our son loves watching that. You can find every game on streaming services because there's the capacity to broadcast it, which is great. But you have to hunt for it. You have to find it.
But then the money's not there.
Well, the money's not there because then the people watch it, and listen, the broadcast value sometimes is terrible, and it's like they have someone's dad out of the stand coming up and broadcasting it and being the announcer, and they're like, and Caitlin hit the ball, and now she's running to base. I mean, it's just so boring. You can't. But so it's just about there's no investment in it. But I think it's a start. You can watch it. I can find almost any game I want to watch at any time in women's sports in some platform if I am willing to make my investment time to find it, And that's okay. I'll take that as a small win right now. I will take that as a small win. I can expose other kids to it.
Slightly off subject, and actually when we drop this, it'll be post Super Bowl, so who knows what happened this upcoming Sunday. I'd love to hear your take on the whole Tay-Tay effect on the Super Bowl narrative.
Let's go, House. We're aligned.
I think it's great. Great.
Yeah.
$350 million in earned media because she's at a game. Little girls watching with their dads or their moms because they just want to take a gander at when the 4 seconds they show her, but they're learning the game. They're getting appreciative of the game. I think it's great. And the people that hate it, I'm like, why do you care? It just. Do you think though that in the context of what we've been discussing, do you think that it will have a backroom potentially negative impact because we're talking about the NFL. We're talking about literally the old boys club that is a monopoly, is a legal monopoly. She's providing. NFL is.
It's
NFL viewership was dropping. No one was watching it.
They pay nothing for it.
Well,
they pay nothing.
But
they get paid
even though their numbers were dropping in total viewership eyeballs, their television contracts were still going up year over year.
Their television contracts were there, but their advertising weren't.
Right.
Advertisers were getting, they know, and they're like, we're not spending this much for a clip. We're not spending this much for a blah, blah, blah. We're not hitting the demographic that they were getting was not there for dollar spend.
So I saw that number too, the $350 million in ad value, right, that she brought to the NFL. Who really benefits from that ultimately in the long run? Do you think that it's a better message, more valuable message to, like you were describing the little girl who's talking to her dad about the game and getting involved in the game? Or is it the NFL saying, hold on, if we do more of this or lean into pop world crossover, we can benefit from that. What's the end game there? If you were to guess or speculate or not care, maybe.
No, I care. I mean, I think that it's going to be a clown show for a few years, right? Like people are going to start dating each other just for this and just for that and all this. Like, are we even convinced they're really a couple? I don't know. We'll see.
Why did nobody care about Giselle? Why did nobody care about Giselle?
I don't know.
Tom Brady's wife.
Oh, no one needed to care about Giselle. She made $70 billion a year on her own. She made more money than he did.
Yeah, I mean, that's why
she didn't put herself out there. Giselle did not put herself out there. They were not an eye of couple. I mean, look at all the commercial spots they got. They did. They cared.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as, number one, she was never as pop culture-y as Taylor is, right? Ever.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is lightning in a bottle. I don't know if this will ever happen again with what's going on with that Eras tour and all of that, what's happening. And, let's think about it. At the beginning of the season, Travis Kelce wasn't that popular. He was a good guy. He was in a couple State Farm commercials. He did some stuff, right? But until this thing happened, no one really cared at all. She made Travis more Travis, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really just an incredible phenomenon, really. I don't know.
Do you guys remember when Messi, right, was coming to the MLS? And I remember, we had like updates of when he was coming, tracking his plane from Europe to Florida, and then he went to the grocery store, and he wasn't even going to play in a game in New York, but ticket prices went up. They called the Messi effect, right? Ticket prices went up, and we could all legitimately say he's not going to play. He's not even eligible, but ticket prices came up. It reminds me a little bit of this. And what else it reminds me of is the fact that when Messi was playing in LA, a bunch of celebrities, right, came to the game, and they spent a lot of time on Apple TV flashing around to different celebrities at the game. And I don't give a shit, but the level of vitriol for Taylor over just a random celebrity at a Messi game is very different. Is the hate that comes from some, and by the way, men and women also, but it's like, why are we so pissed at this young, very successful,
let's call it
kicking ass woman?
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Drake, well, yeah, and we could see, Drake at a NBA game, or all these celebrities come to Messi's game, and nobody's pissed about flashing the camera over there.
No, look, it's the underbelly of this whole issue is really, it's political. That is what is kind of fueling the fire, because nobody cared about Aaron Rodgers, and all of his opinions. As long as he's an NFL quarterback, he has the right to go outside the realm. And she hasn't even said anything. She just simply did something 4 years ago that made a whole bunch of people mad. So it's
she made people register to vote.
Yeah, which made certain people mad. So I just find it really, really interesting, because I think that it's this kind of North Star, so to speak, of a little bit of this, the whole context of what we've been talking about, because the hypocrisy is not only real, but it's like it's almost growing in front of our eyes in real time. So I don't know.
You can't. I don't feel like I could go past it without saying, not only is it political, it's misogyny. I mean, if you look up the dictionary definition of misogyny, and you look at, and again, the genders that participate in this are men and women. Misogyny is not just men; it's women as well. But it's people who participate in this where we get really upset about she's breaking some rules, right? And she's kind of breaking some molds, and it's inspiring, and it's growing. It's not threatening to me, but it's obviously threatening to some. And it's interesting, just in your own little Facebook community, where you go, oh, I didn't know that this really pissed off somebody that I'm connected with. I had no idea that this was living in their head rent free, that she's on camera for a grand total of 23 seconds or whatever that is. And the NFL, you're welcome. I mean, you should probably pay her, because that's free for you. Maybe a ticket in a box that
Can you
Don't even
imagine?
ticket to?
Can you imagine if they sneak a third stage out on Super Bowl and it's like the Taylor stage? Because it's supposed to be Usher and one other person, and that would
And
be
you know,
great.
it's like
That would be
how much of the
yeah,
camera
just
is
go
going
ahead
to
and
be
do
on
it.
the halftime show, and then Taylor enjoying the halftime show, right? Like
That's crazy.
And she's also coming from Tokyo, so I've seen all the math, and I don't know how it's going to work, but it's pretty awesome. And I wouldn't say that in our house, and I mean, this Soccer Mom Sunday has just turned to the Taylor Swift show, but that we're Swifties. I will say that sometimes she's got really catchy songs, and when my 7-year-old plays them, I'm like, damn it, because then I can't stop singing the damn song. But I'm probably now a Swiftie just because I'm pissed off about assholes being, being. There you go. Don't ask me about Star Trek and Star Wars anymore, JB. Ask me about Taylor Swift. I will find all the information.
Nah, I think I'm done there. All good. How's who do you have in the Super Bowl? Who you picking?
I got to go Niners. My wife is from up there. The full family, my whole in-law family lives up there. I lived there for 4 years. NFC, they're NFC. I mean, I'm a huge Packer fan, but you got to go for the NFC. So, yeah, Niners all the way.
Jen,
It's gonna be a big show.
Cease, who do you have?
You know,
Niners. You're right. It's the Niners.
Okay, right. Simultaneously, I was like, wait, I'm in St. Louis, and so most of us are Chiefs, but wait, I'm on this show with JB, and he's a KC hater. Taylor Swift, go Taylor Swift. Yes.
You're Taylor. Look, Kansas City, they
That's
voted.
a cop out.
They voted
Totally
to
is.
move our team. You can never support. I love how all these St. Louis fans are now our Chiefs nation. Forget the fact that they
Here we
voted
go.
to get rid of our team. So there's
Listen,
that too.
I'm just saying, people just need to know that if you want a football team, have me move to your city. I came to St. Louis, the Rams came. We won a Super Bowl. I moved to LA, the Rams come. We move a Super Bowl. Who wants the
House
Rams
effect.
next? Just tell me where to go. Tell me where to go.
House effect.
I'm in. That's right. The Rams follow me.
Well, you got a little Cronky in your speed dial there or something. Are you texting him like, "Hey, I'm moving. Where's next?"
All right, let's go. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Go ahead,
Thanks,
Jen.
House.
No, thank you. Cease, it's so good to see you. We have to do this more than every, 20 years?
Agreed. I just have to find my way out to California. But I would say come back to
Please,
St.
come
Louis,
on
but
out.
I'd rather find my way out to California.
I like that better.
Me too.
House, it was a pleasure meeting you. I appreciate your time.
It'd be great. Great meeting you too. Thanks, man. This was a blast. I really appreciate it.